Okay, we are going to be starting with the part 2 of the Noclip documentary Rewriting History. It's the part where we talk about, where we discuss and see exactly what happened and exactly why the game became alive. What happened in that 2-year period between the game coming out and being destroyed by critics and everyone online, and the game being reborn. So let's see.
So what did you think from your perspective as CFO
Okay.
to fix this problem? It's going to cost a lot of money. It's going to involve creating a new game. It's going to involve keeping the other game still running. Did you think at that time that that was a solid investment, that that's what Square Enix should be doing, or did you think that it was a risky venture?
Oh, it was definitely a risky venture. Oh, it was a fucking risky venture. All right.
リスクの高い話多分一般的には多分なるというふうに思うんですけれども、さすがに当社はねナンバリングタイトルフラッグシップのタイトルで MMO これだけのタイトルなわけですから、それがこのままサービスが頓挫してしまうとね、これ非常に将来的にまずいと。これはやっぱり経営上これ非常に大きなダメージを与えるということで。
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it was very risky. It was something required to do. That is the thing. Square Enix ultimately cares about Final Fantasy a lot. And if the brand is under the danger of being completely evaporated from the minds of the public, they will do everything in their power to fix it. That is the difference in mentality of ultimately the corporate. Corporate is still shitty, right? The crunch still exists, everything still exists, but the brands they have are not treated as disposable trash. Because you see a lot of Western developers these days, a lot of the brands they have, it's treated as disposable trash effectively. It's just things that can get people addicted. It's just like the way to get them to pay money, if anything. It's not anything more than that to a lot of the Western developers. It's like, that's why when they try to imitate the gacha games of Japan, Korea, China, and everything. That's why they try to imitate. None of them stick around. That's why the gacha genre entirely has been basically converted to anime games. Even though effectively there's gacha games on our side of things. There's the Raid Shadow Legends and everything, but they're so bland and uninteresting outside of their gacha mechanic. They didn't pull their best writers to do the good story. They didn't do anything really. And okay, there's still a lot of gacha games that are really trashy, right? But even on both sides. But the best outstanding examples of those games are rich in story, rich in gameplay, rich in characters. People want to roll for characters because they like them, not because they just have the thousands and thousands of stat blocks that have 3D models. They have personality, they have interests, they have particular, they have relevance in the story. You want to have all of them, you really do, but unfortunately, not all people can grasp at the fact that quality often brings lots of profits. Quality in a free-to-play game that is riddled with microtransactions, right? If it's a quality game, people will pay those microtransactions. People will enjoy those microtransactions. Valorant is maybe not a game for everyone, but it's a good game that lots of people like. Lots of people will buy skins for it because they A, want to support the developers, B, they just like the skins and they like the gameplay and they want to show off. So a lot of the egregious tactics that they use are acceptable suddenly. Instead of when normal AAA developers would use those tactics, people go insane because this is bad, this is shitty. But yeah, it's effectively that way. A lot of things is forgivable if you have quality. Rewriting history.
Hello and welcome back to our series on the fall and rise of Final Fantasy XIV Online. We rejoin Yoshida-san and the team at Square Enix at the start of a long adventure, and with players leaving en masse and the clock ticking, it was time for them to formulate a plan. But how exactly do you rebuild an MMO while people are still playing it?
Yoshida-san set his eyes on a 2013 launch date for the new version of 14, as he wanted to have the game out for fans within the PlayStation 3's lifecycle. But to do this while still patching 1.0, he would have to create an entirely new MMO in less than half the time of most conservative estimates. So before we get into specifics of what exactly was changed, I wanted to know how he did it. So for a moment, we step away from game design and dive into a critically important aspect of video games development that we rarely talk about: project management.
Designing an MMO must, I just imagine the timeline for something like this is at least 5 years for anything. And you're being asked to do it in less than half of that, probably. When you're designing games, when we talk to people, so much of it is iterative, that you create something and then you refine it and you brush it and then you look at it again. But you didn't have that luxury. You had to make sure that the version of A Realm Reborn that was coming out at that date was the final package. So did that change the way that you had to set up the team and the way your workflow kind of went?
MMORPG の開始5年が普通だっていうのはもうちょっと強く言っといてください。まずそのスケジュールトラブルを起こさないためのそのマネジメントの工夫としては、なんだろうな、言い方がちょっと難しいんですけど、ものすごく腕のいい、特に
100ぐらいし
かいないようなプログラマーが
100 type of programmers so much.
ので、かつ
We didn't make a whole lot of assets in a very short amount of time. Good lord. Good lord, they needed to do so much bullshit. Really did.
能力のこの差をある意味高いレベルに合わせるんじゃなくて、低いレベルに合わせるというか、言い方
They needed to do so much, like objectively speaking, in order for the game to function the way it was supposed to. They needed to remake the assets. They needed to remake the stuff involved in this. They needed to remake all the things that were not functional back then. Effectively, they just needed to just make sure everything that works. They need to remake the fundamentals. They needed to absolutely modify the game in a way that was very hard to do, very hard to achieve, honestly. Like, very hard. Also, what the fuck?
難しいな。平均的なところに合わせるっていうそのマネージメントをすることで。
Chance of risk happening. Try to lower the chance of risk happening. Yeah, they had to basically do the work of the 5 to 6 years within a year and a half, with half of the team, because the other half of the team was busy with establishing connections to the new version, A, in the lore, B, making sure the game is upkept and updated as per promises of the management, that they will fix the game, and they did fix the game ultimately, to some degree anyway, to keep the players playing, really. And it was just all of that they needed to achieve within 2 years of time. Basically half, even less than a half, than a development cycle of a normal MMORPG. Like, just, Jesus Christ, they must have lived on the job. They must have had little tents with like sleeping bags inside of them on the job in the closet, just because they didn't see home. They didn't see home in a year. Yeah.
まあ何をしたかというと、とにかく一つのタスク、例えばドラグーンというそのジョブを作るっていう時に、まあ今言った
No.
ドラグーンっていうジョブを作る。
How a lot of these work. I'll let him finish the sentence and then continue.
そうじゃない実際には。何個のドラグーンアクションが必
Actions
要で
assigned to a particular job, and so you would need to programming for each of actions. Yeah, each.
どれだけかかるか。もちろんその
How much time it takes to do that.
アクションを作る
In order to do what you need to do, specify documents, specification
指
documents.
導書も必要だし、
So say, for example, when you take a look at the task of creating a specific document.
実際にその
Because this specification document in 2 hours to create. It's 2 hours to create. Then request to review is sent to me, and then my review takes about 15 minutes.
依頼が
No,
deこれからチェックするので
give or take 15-20 minutes. Depends. It should depend on that.
一つのタスク
Went through everything thoroughly. That level of detail that went into
分解
and invisibility to our tasks. We boiled it down to the absolute minimum task element to manage our workload.
その
So I think by doing that, the staff members may have been a little bit stressed because of seeing all that.
だろうなとは思います
But that's how I started to break it down.
その
And so once it broke it down to every single little task, I had staff
タ
members
スクが自分で早く
assess how long it would take for them to do the single minimum
この時
task.
間でこのタスク
When you
が
can say, if I finish the task in this time, I would reward myself.
このタスクが
Then the other extreme, if it takes me longer than this to finish my task, I'd be ashamed to be accepting pay, sort of worst case
最
scenario.
悪のケースっていうそのミニマムで終わ
I
る
had such staff members assess the minimum and the maximum time it would take
時間を
to complete a particular task, and I would have them report those timings.
その平均値で
And then I would say the average time it would take. He was basically playing a grand strategy game right there. Within his, he was basically trying to do a speed run on a grand strategy game development cycle. He was speed running. The dude had like Google documents with pages upon pages upon pages of just specific min-maxing time schedules. That's that's not a tactic anyone uses in development usually. There's some sort of streamlining, right? But everyone is aware that they have enough time to not to do these tasks, and that they just assume that everyone else will be fine with their task, right? There's no such thing as min-maxing time in normal development cycle, but because of such a short amount of development time they have on their hands, he must have absolute control over how much time it will take to finish a class. So, for example, if you have a class and a job, Dragoon, you need to make sure you have all of those actions the Dragoon is able to do. And then you need to make all the animations for the Dragoon during those actions. And then you need to make the interactions between actions work as well. And then you need to make everything else function correctly. And then you need to implement the function quests immediately.
Good night, guys and girls.
Yeah, good night, good night. Thank you for coming in. But yeah, you need to implement everything that surrounds those quests and how you unlock the actions. And all of that take a certain amount of time, each of this, and you accumulate, say, it takes, well, I'm not just spitballing here, it usually takes much longer. It takes a month to finish those entire things because all of the project time is accumulated into a single month of work time. And then you need to place specific people who would do this the fastest onto the specific task, and then you need to shift that person as soon as they are done with their tasks. You need to shift the person who did everything, every part of the task on this job. You need to shift them on the black mage, for example. And it's just every single part of that is kind of you need to accept the reality that it's just going to be very hard and tedious, and you have to be working. You need to be prepared to be shifted to another project at any moment, anytime, any situation. You need to be prepared for a shift to occur.
本当にミニマムマイクロマネージメントマイクロすぎるぐらいのマイクロマネージメント
It's extreme micromanagement.
それを最初はウィークでみんなそのやり方に慣れてもらうために毎週1週間
Yes, to the system. Yeah. It's extreme micromanagement.
マネジメントを回してで1週間経つと結果が出るのでさらにそこに個人パラメータ例えば吉田はやたらとミニマムをこう短い時間で申告するけど結局タスクが終わってみるとマックスに寄りがちだなってなった場合は、50%で見積もる
About to sort of management. Yeah.
係数をかけて吉田はマックス側に寄るからきっと次の週のスプリントはもうちょっとマックス側に寄るだろうみたいなのを
Yeah, it's
で個人特性
so yeah, it's very deep min-maxing situation there. What comments per day? I mean, it's really good. Think of 8 hours. Yep. Something like that. 8,
あと必ずミーティング
give or take 8 hours.
その会議室でのミーティングじゃなかったとしてもスタッフと主要の打ち合わせを絶対にそのデスクトゥデスクでフェイストゥフェイスでやることもあると思うので1日の稼働は6時間で計算して てましたね、その時は。全員6時間、8時間では見ない。
Mm-hmm.
で大体慣れてきたらそれをまあ
Well,
20
depending on the yeah.
変えて、あとは毎朝
It was basically every single part of day to account it. Yeah, and that's really is what is also to add to this. There was also breaks you need to add, free days that are required by the law to be free days. You have to have days off. It's just like you need to juggle the entire team as like as like juggling balls in the air, but like you need to make sure you are everywhere at once, and you have like 70 arms that all juggle the same balls, and one ball is not going to fall until like tomorrow, and then the other ball you need to shift the other ball into another hand and switch them around and shift everything, and all those balls are moving constantly in within those 70 hands, and some of them need to be taken out of equation. You need to you need to accept new balls into this whole situation. It's just like it's such a chaotic mess. It's such a basically. Fundamentally, it reminds me of a ant layer, effectively, where all the workers must completely and utterly be in absolute sync for the project to succeed. Because otherwise, it will be absolute fucking chaos. And it's not going to solve itself at this point. And they had no choice but to approach the situation like that again because of the time constraints.
自分のタスクが今どうなってるのか、
Stand
誰
up
かの
meeting.
タスクが遅れてるせいで自分のタスクに
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
毎朝スタンドアップミーティングをして、
I don't know about standing tests from cross-functional teams that is stopping New York from progressing. Yeah,
毎朝
that we would report on the daily basis as well. Yeah,
スクラムの
it was like a Scrum method, a little bit modified, but very similar. Yep,
連携型
to that sort of management style.
ただ
But the sort of micromanagement style I would not recommend it at
マ
all.
ネジメント普通じゃないので
No,
しないですよ。
no. It's only because we were trying to recreate. Yep.
RPG を作る。逆に言うとスタッフにも
We'll not have to convince. Would have to saying it's not going to be more than 2 years.
かからず、
Yeah. Imagine if you had exact timetables of how you need to finish everything in your life for the next 2 years. You would be stressed as fuck. Like it's not even like a if. It's gotta be you're absolutely going to be stressed the hell out of life because what if you take 5 minutes more? What if you take 5 minutes less? What if you completely drop out of the rhythm and never return back to it? What if you let down yourself and your colleagues? What if you just don't do your weight because everything is so pitch perfect? It's like a speed run of a game that has many players in it, and every single person needs to do pitch perfect in timing. Every single player needs to finish the speed run in one time, otherwise the entire speedrun marathon falls. And you realize that the expectations of everyone else, of every single person of the team, every single person that plays the game, every single person, it all lies on your shoulders, because if you fuck up, this whole thing falls apart. So I imagine it was, it was hell, frankly speaking. It was hell. I cannot describe it in any other words than a hell. Because in mental health capacity. Maybe it was it wasn't as bad physically, but it was definitely hellish mentally.
マネジメントだから今は我慢してって言ってやってもらったものなので、
So strongly recommended. Yeah, don't do that.
I mean, anyone can come in and say, "Oh yeah, we're gonna rebuild the game. Follow me."
Yeah, follow me.
But he came in with,
A fucking
huge
spreadsheet.
Excel that had all of these lists of everything on it. What we're gonna do here. What we're gonna do here. This is when we're gonna do them by. And this is what we're gonna do here. And to see that, it's like, okay,
Yeah.
this isn't just a stopgap type of thing where
Yeah.
president
Yep.
says, "Okay, crazy here. Let's just change the leader and hopefully things will get better." It was an actual, okay, this guy really wants to do this. He has this plan.
Yoshida had them running like a well-oiled machine, so it was time to get to work. First things first, they had to start the rollout of patches for 1.0.
Yep.
A critical part of the failure of the first game was the poor communications the development team had
Yes.
with their community. So, to keep
So
the hard
absolute
times on board during
transparent.
this protracted protracted period of redevelopment, they had to be a lot more transparent.
Yeah, absolute transparency. You need to make sure your players understand what is your plan, because people who do not trust that you have a plan, they will not stick around. People who trust that you have a plan and see that you executing on the plan are much more eligible to stay around, even if the product right now is not bad, is not good, is not bad, is not good. That's how it was with my friend, who was like, yeah, maybe it's not like super fun right now, but I do see that they're trying to fix it. I do see that they're trying to do something about it, right? And I do see the fact that there's this added, this added, this added. And it's not only like talk to talk. They don't just ramble on about how much bullshit they're gonna add. They're actually adding it. And I'm like, oh, eventually, over time, the game actually came into a somewhat decent shape as well. I remember it clearly. We sat down together. We basically played together only. It was basically like a weekly thing. We came in after some IRL stuff, and we sat down and we played. I was in university, actually, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I was in university back then, 10 years ago. Yeah, we played it in university because in 2010s I was middle of my uni, studying stuff, and I was like, basically we did homework, sat down in the in our shared room. It was my roommate as well. We shared a room and we just played the game together, basically. He had a PC. We played the game. I didn't have a PC, but I did play the game. It was something quite magical back then.
Night.
Yeah, and it's just so, I don't know how to say it. It just became such a cool experience. Like every week, every evening we played for give or take 5-6 hours. Even we made quite a few friends over there as well, like with people who just played together. Because again, it was still the era of the online games being like a novelty. So people just played. I mean, not the online games, but the MMOs being like a bit of a novelty. So people still socialized. There was so little convenience to make you socialize with others. You just had to socialize. So you did socialize, and we did socialize. We made a guild and everything. I didn't play a single day of 1.0, I have to be honest. But I did experience all this shit through my friends, so that was kind of an interesting perspective to have, almost.
Explain to players a very first is it was failure.
It was failure.
So we need to restart the game. I mean, at that timing we didn't announce that. I mean, Realm Reborn is not announced, but
Realm Reborn is not announced.
This game, we need more communication. So just list all the changes, plan changes. So some, I mean, upper management people doesn't like this because if you show this to the players, I mean, player knows what we will do. So, I mean, after that, you did this, but you didn't do this, you didn't this. Everyone can check that. So, I mean, some people doesn't really like that way, but I mean,
yeah. See, that's the problem. A lot of the modern developers have. They don't talk exactly because they will be held accountable. Blizzard fucked up in that with Overwatch 2. They told everyone that they will do this PvE concept, right? They will do this PvE storyline. They do with everything. They do this PvE game mode. But then they didn't. No matter what they can say, no matter what they do, people will find all of the receipts about them talking in interviews, about them talking to game journalists, about them talking to everyone, that they promised to do exactly that. And when they promised to do exactly that, they automatically signed an expectation warranty. When the warranty of expectation has not been met, the disappointment is often more than rage, because disappointment is calmer. Rage can be like, oh, it's so bad, but then they just return to play. But now the game bleeds players, Overwatch 2, because of this disappointment. People are no longer willing to deal with this kind of crap because they were disappointed. They were expecting one thing and they got another thing. And that's Honestly, I would have. It was very short-sighted to announce Overwatch 2 like that. To say like, oh, now it's gonna be PVE. It's very short-sighted. If they just announced Overwatch 2 and like did something more than PVE, something else, like added new maps, new things, and it was like maybe they said that, oh, maybe this we just want to make a new engine and everything. Just basically remade Overwatch. Nobody would complain at all. If anything, it would revitalize interest in Overwatch as a game and make sure the people would be much more accepting of everything. But no, they basically wanted a really loud announcement so that, oh, hello, we were going to do this PvE campaign. It's going to be so good and so amazing. But then they didn't. Now they are basically reaping what they sow. Unfortunately.
Are discussing how we deal with the community, but what we need to do is to establish the trust.
Trust.
確かに、まあ、今の
Trust goes such a long way in development, in any development. Trust of a community is absolutely something that you need to get. Because if you don't get it, you don't sell anything. If you get it, you sell everything. Even if it's bad initially, even if it's bad way. If you have the trust, you have the benefit of the doubt for a mistake. It's a much easier time developing games if you have the community's trust. Yoshi P and community and team and management of Final Fantasy 14, they have a lot of trust from players who stuck around it for years at this point. They have so much trust. People started their entire careers streaming Final Fantasy 14. People just spend their entire lives playing Final Fantasy 14 at this point. Like, half of their lives at least, right? From teenagers to like current times. It's just like so. It's such a comfortable game to them that the brand of Final Fantasy became such a big thing in their life that they probably will try at least try every single game of Final Fantasy. I'd say they can, or if they're interested in trying any other game at all, they will try it. But say Overwatch and Blizzard, they lost the trust of the community, of the majority of the community. There's still people who trust them, obviously, but there's the majority of community has lost the trust for Blizzard. And so every single decision they make is scrutinized. Every single decision they make is like an outrage. If you have the trust, mistakes are not going to be as public, as loud, as publicized, as scandalized, because you have the trust. People trust you to fix your shit, right? What Yoshi P and the team did, they did a very correct decision in addressing the fact that they did actually fuck up. They did bad. They need to fix something, and they're fixing it. And people went, okay, we are waiting. We believe in you. Go ahead.
14のそのユーザーベースから見れば当時のユーザーベースはまあものすごい小さかったと思う。まあ今と比較すると。ただまあメディアの皆さんからもそのプレイヤーからもそのファイナルファンタジー14はもうダメだ。むしろなんであんなダメなゲーム遊んでるの君たち。どうかしてるんじゃないのって言われながらもいやファイナルファンタジーシリーズだから絶対なんとかしてくれる。
Yeah, Final Fantasy.
いやこれはこれで。
Or I still enjoy playing the game regardless. Leave us alone. I mentioned that 11 had a lot of troubles at first. Yeah. But they believe that things would be better, so they continued playing. Yes. So numbers-wise, yes, it made it so small, but those are very people who supported Square Enix and Final Fantasy and all this. Exactly, the numbers are worth it because those people are gonna stay and play and spend money and support and advertise the game to the other people in their life. They're gonna be, oh, have you heard of this critically acclaimed MMORPG Final Fantasy 14? Sorry for the copy pasta, but still, they're the same people who made that copy pasta. The people who were there since 1.0, and it was like with free trial and everything, and they are going to be those people who will eventually convince Asmongold to try Final Fantasy 14, who would eventually convince other people to try Final Fantasy 14, and it became one of the biggest games in the world. because of those people, because the Yoshi P and team trusted those people, because they were supported by those people, and they returned the support in full. It's a good relationship to have, honestly. Word of mouth usually attracts a lot more attention to the game than people realize. They can have like a big marketing campaign, sure, and it's going to attract a lot of casual players. But those casual players are most likely not going to stay around, because it's the same thing happened with the YouTube channels. When you are promoted a YouTube channel, what do? You click on it, you watch a little bit, and then you never subscribe, and then go fuck off and never see it again, right? Or if you see the video from the recommended tab, you still click on it, right? But you will not subscribe until you find a video or something that you really like, or unless someone, maybe your favorite creator, went in and says, "Oh, follow this guy," and you will follow this guy. If you just find me, for example, online on the internet through my one of my videos, there is about 60%, 70% chance that you will not subscribe, right? Majority of people who watch my channel do not subscribe to me. That's I have much more views than I have my subscriptions. It's just a fact. People who will stay, they will be the fans. People who don't stay, they will occasionally drop by, but that's it, right? Same thing happened here. But if it was a different thing, if, for example, just spitballing here, Selentatsuki, I interacted with Selentatsuki and played like Apex Legends with her or something like that, right? And then suddenly I would find a lot of people from Selen's audience that basically came in and was like, "Oh, you're cool, we're gonna stay here because you played with Selen, we're a fan, right?" And just gonna be same thing happened with Neos. I still see a lot of people who came from Neos, who came from Kroko, because I interacted, and you guys are the ones who became my regulars as well. It's this shared community side type of thing. Same thing. It is also ultimately spreads a web of this shared community situation where people go, "Oh, have you heard of this game? No, I haven't heard this game. Okay, do you want to try this game? I played this game. Let's play together. Yay!" And they play together, and then the person who played together becomes a fan. That's basically it. It's an intricate process.
応援してくれている人たち
Well, Final Fantasy would probably be over. If we ignored them, I thought Final Fantasy would probably be over. Yeah.
ファイナルファンタジーはダメだろうと思ってたので、
Yep,
むし
yep,
ろ
yep.
何よりも大切にしなきゃいけない部分だった。
Well, Venus also had to do this statement. That was biggest reason. Yep. The trust that we had to get back from those people who stuck with us throughout the years.
そうだと思うのでね、
Yeah.
信頼ってそういうことなのかなっていうふうに
It didn't matter if we spent millions of dollars. It's a cost spent for something we wouldn't have been able to repair later. I believe that's what trust is. Yep.
もう一つやっぱり
So what I felt was important about continuing to patch 1X series,
その大
and that's what I explained to the corporation as well.
絶対に彼らの
We needed their help. We needed them to be on our side. Yep.
意味を持っていると考えてます。
Because maybe when they release a new Final Fantasy XIV, right? Maybe they will receive a completely new player base, right? New people from the marketing. They will obviously spend money to market, and then they will receive new people who play the game as well. But then the old people will be alienated by this, and those people who stuck through the game through its worst will most likely be ecstatic to play the game when it's best, right? So if you keep those players, they will be the spearheads of your community in any capacity, in whatever capacity they're capable of.
Next, Yoshida split his team in half, some working on the new version of 14 and others working on the updates to 1.0, called the Guts version.
The Guts version,
With
yeah.
so much of the game requiring fixing, where do you even start?
まず一番最初にやらなきゃいけないと思ったのはインターフェースをとにかくなんて言うんだろうな最低限遊べるように
Yep.
正直本当申し訳ない
The interface was.
僕最初にやっぱりオリジナルの14触って
Look at this shit. I could not play literally. This is supposed to have been only on PC, but it looks like a console game. It was a PC that looked like a console game. And PC controls were obviously so fucking clunky because it was basically like porting a console game on PC without adjusting controls whatsoever. But it wasn't even the port. It wasn't even the port. It's like this button. Let's click this button again, again, and there's just like you need to go through the entire menu and just like you need to like go yank 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then click button to get into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then menus upon menus upon menus upon menus. It's just like now you need to look on the other side of the screen, look at the other side of the screen, and then now need to scroll by using the buttons towards this, so you can choose this option, and then you need to equip this by using clicking another button, and it's just like you need to basically I've seen that try hard speedrunning gifs are like but like with every menu interaction you have to do. It's like basically completely and utterly overshadowing every possible enjoyment you may have from interacting with the game. Is just basically slow. Every time you need to get something from the menu, it's slowly sapping at your soul because you spend like solid 5 minutes fiddling with the fucking menu to get what you want. Yeah, look at this. Look at this. Yeah, look at this. Right, for you to have game control. Yep.
ゲームパッドがないとまともに遊べない。聞いたことがないそんな PC ゲーム。マウスキーボードでまともに遊べないゲームなんか見たことがなかったので。
Yep. So matter how much content or jobs we created for the game, yeah, exactly. See what I mean? You needed to have a controller to play on PC. It's not that you could play with the controller. It's that you required to have a controller on PC. And then you have the performance, and then you have the audio quality, and then you have the overloaded server issues, and then you have the combat issue situation where you just stood there for 5 minutes and slowly waited until your cooldowns were refreshed, so you can press another button and wait until your stamina recovers, and wait until this and this and that, and just like.
いくらそのコンテンツを作ろうが、ジョブを作ろうが。インターフェースがダメだったらコンテンツの面白さに到達する前に人はゲームをやめてしまうのでとにかくインターフェースを直さない
It was yeah almost to be repairing interface and make it payable. Yeah, that's the third thing they did. I remember correctly. I touched the game. The first time I touched the game, I quit the game in 5 minutes. I think it's really silly, but I didn't know how to quit. Yep. Yes. Good top to corner. See the next button. I clicked it. If you quit, your log is not done the same. Chris, I'm an engineer, and I understand that it's constantly overwriting your progress on the server, and it's supposed to be some kind of disclaimer. Yeah. For those rare cases that save my fail. But I mean, it's unavailable. The dialogue popping up there. People were scared to quit the game. Yes. Yes, I remember that. It was just like, you need to quit the game. Just like, and we would basically always travel to a town or like a convenient location and like drop our shit into a bag before we learn that it's just a disclaimer, right? We drop our shit into a bag, a specific bag, so it's saved, and then we basically safeguard it against like losing data, quote unquote, right? Because we didn't know any better, right? We didn't know what the fuck was that meant. We basically exit the game after spending inhuman amount of time to prepare for something that would never happen. Every single time we played. It was such a silly fucking idea. I still remember to this day. It was like a ritual. Let's drop our shit. It's like, I returned from home, honey. I'm gonna drop my shit into the bag. And then log off. Like we realized it wasn't even a necessity after a little bit. Like a little bit passed and they realized, oh, it's just a fucking disclaimer before we exit the game. But we just panicked initially so hard that we decided to do it, and then we continued doing it for the pure shits and giggles of it all.
interface isn't sexy. It's not something you tend to hear
Yeah.
about in video games coverage, because really, when it's done correctly,
You don't
you're not
notice it.
supposed to notice it.
Yeah.
So when the early patches for the game concentrated on interface and quality of life updates, much of the community began to get frustrated.
Yeah.
The team needed to fix it quickly, so Yoshida employed the help of a Square veteran,
Mm-hmm.
one of the developers on that original 1.0 task force.
はい、皆川博と
Minagawa Hiroshi.
ファイナ
Okay.
ルファンタジー14ではユーザーインターフェースの、
But visual not only design structure, but also the visual aspect of it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
方も担当しています。よろしくお願いします。
Welcome.
今
47. He doesn't look like 47. He doesn't look 47 at all. But I joined the company was at 25, 20 years ago. Yeah, fair enough. Till this time, it wasn't even Square Enix. It was Square. Okay, yeah, yeah. Worked in Final Fantasy Tactics, and I was art director in that game. Oh, art director of Tactics. Okay. Yeah, I remember this one.
少ない情報や
Typically, it was a standalone game, so it's a little streamlined. Yeah, but with Final Fantasy 14, I had to consider about more customization.
あの考え方で
So this is the guy who have to think for the UI. Nice.
好きなカスタマイズ
Utilizes and allowing the player to be able to customize it as they like.
意識してます。まあやはりバトル
So the battles in Final Fantasy 14 move at a relatively speedy tempo. Yeah, I'd say so. So I did believe that using your D-pad to move your cursor focus
動かしながら決定
and then selecting was not the optimal way to control. Not at all.
ちょっとゲームにならない
Not at all. No. I would want to implement a cross hotbar to select a different one.
クロスホットバーという
Yeah.
アクションを選択
The CC, when you don't have attacks, when you don't have like default attacks, right? And when the pace of the battle is so much slower, dragging your cursor with your D-pad is much easier because you are able to like click the thing, and then it works, right? And then you just while you wait for the thing to cast, you could just drag your D-pad to another button that you click after that and wait until that casts. And then, but in the Final Fantasy 14 now, there's a lot of moving elements. There's off cooldowns, there's cooldowns, and there's off cooldowns. There's cooldown, main cooldowns, which is universal. So every time you press a button, there's a rhythm to it. You press a button, then it reverses. You press a button, reverses. Press a button, and then there is off cooldowns, which are basically have their own cooldowns that you need to consider. There is a button there to leap, for example, or like there's a button to cast a buff. You have to sort of keep all those in mind. And if you were playing all of that with controller, oh fucking I punched my microphone. If you were playing that with a controller, it would be inevitably cause you to lug around and hyper focus on a specific combination of skills that you could do effectively. But you would not utilize majority of your hotbar if you just needed to drag around your cursor with a hotbar, because it's just so unoptimized. Like it's just not feasible to control a game like that. It's really not. Like try to do that. It's so inconvenient. It's so fucking inconvenient. And you think it's like a small thing, right? It's such a small thing, but it's a small thing that you're encountering every time you play, every time you fight in an MMO, which is a game that is built about combat experience, effectively. Quest and combat experience is any MMO is created from two parts: storyline and throwing hands. Right, storyline might be bullshit, but it needs to get you from point A to point B in the world with quests. Need to get you from level 1 to level 50. I don't fucking know, level 50, 60, whatever. You need to have a storyline to guide you from there to there with quest lines, and then you have a battle system, which is what you are engaging with as you level, because every single step of the way is the battle system. If the battle system is inconvenient as fuck, it's going to be frustrating you more and more and more and more and more. Just how it is. System that I'm familiar with because I had been creating very similar systems.
割と昔から他のゲームで自分自身作った
One other games that I had worked on and was utilizing in the yeah.
絶対それでいけるだろうなという思いはありました
So I didn't feel like it was too difficult of a challenge. Yeah.
します
So when we changed the way something is displayed on screen there, yeah. Of course, people take notice. It was such an obvious such and such previously, but now it's this.
例えばインベントリーは
For example, inventory used to be listed in text, but once it became
アイ
icons,
コンになると当然その
people had complained that, oh, I don't know what it is. Which item is that? And so, can we have both a text listing and an icon? It's kind of difficult to do both. Yeah. So I actually have a list of outstanding items that we have had since the release of Ariel Reborn. And some of these items get implemented over even over 2 years after the launch. Sorry. Next thing I really needed was a revision of Change's battle system. If you didn't have properly working battle system, you won't be able to make content. Yes. As I said, content, storyline, whatever, to go through level 1 to 50 fighting system. Number 1, revision the interface number 1, and then the battle system, and then the game content. Basics. I think that was the proper order that I wanted to tackle them. Yep. The party battle system back then, you would have been able to make a party with 15 people. Surprising. On top of that, the magic or points or MP, there wasn't any way to manage it. So the healer would cast the strongest spell, Kuraga, or Cure 3. No matter how many times it would cost that your MP didn't follow 0. So why do you need any other spells? Yes. I think, yeah, I remember it. It was basically just a bunch of people in full party. We just had to cheese content like that. We basically partied up for 15 people. Then we went in and some random dude, and all of us spammed Cure 3, like biggest spell possible, healing spell possible, and we just didn't fall down HP levels at all. We just basically bonked the ever living shit out of the thing, with like basically eventually whittling down to nothing. And that's basically how you played the game. They did the mechanics, they did everything. If the server didn't stutter, we actually even reacted to it. Yep. Healing spell that you want. No, it's really rough, very rough. Yep. That's how you play the game. Exciting, isn't it? Exciting, isn't it? So exciting. And then you could cast spells with any weapon and everything. It's just like a bam, 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 bam. And this is like, it's basically just a repeated cycle of the same doing the same actions over and over again. Like it's not even like an enjoyable loop either. It's just basically like a loop that existed. It wasn't exactly too exciting. Yep. You could ride chocobos. They were just there. It's just there, vibing. I couldn't find it. Yep. What the fuck was this? I played Final Fantasy and it didn't really feel like Final Fantasy to me. It's basically like, oh, by the way, we're Final Fantasy, right? Let's slap it in. Yeah, let's slap the chocobos in. They were just vibing. Let's slap all this stuff in. Let's just like all of this was just there. Oh my god. You did this first levels. Like if you go to the with Call Summon. All they really need to implement those as boss battles. Yeah. Of course, chocobos. There's an MMO. You've got to be able to ride the chocobo. Yes. The job system. They want specific jobs. Yep. Job system. There were not job systems. There were no jobs. That's why you've seen a dude with a halberd basically cast big cure spell on himself. Because there was like a mix battle. I don't remember the specifics about it honestly, but it was like a mix hybrid, weird bullshit, confusing that you needed to like build your own character or something like that. I don't remember specifics, but you needed to like build your character, and it often became like a Frankenstein monster of different features. And people were really building the same thing. When they just grabbed the long arm weapons. They grabbed like healing spells, and they just didn't really use any other spells. Like, what's the point, really? Because it was just like you would just survive through everything, you know. Again, I might be talking out of my ass here because I don't remember a lot of things. It was more than 10 years ago, so and I wasn't even like the gamer participating. I was an overseer there. I was the observer. Guess something never change. Guess something never change, huh?
でもそれもやっぱりさっき言ったようにインターフェースとバトル
I was trying to revise the ramp, yeah, and laying the foundation for these elements to be implemented. I was going through that and create the different specifications for these elements to be put in. Slowly but surely, I did notice the response to the changes that we had been making. Yeah. People were starting to mention that, oh yeah, it's a good game. A number of players also have been steadily, more slowly, but steadily increasing, which also was great emotional support for us. Yes. In the middle of the time between the release date and between the grand explosion, there has been increase in players, which I assume has been happening because of the word of mouth situation, because it has been fairly quiet in terms of like marketing. Well, also people were more willing to try the game because they still had the subscription suspended, so you didn't really need to pay subscription to play the game, right? You could still just play it, right? And it basically was very easy to go in and play the game a little bit, and if you didn't like it, sure, you could just drop it, right? You didn't like, it's not even like an investment really at that point. People were just coming in. Some people stuck around from that era as well when the game became better, stuck around till the end of the life cycle. Some people didn't, obviously. Like I'm not sure I should be even telling that. That's just basically obvious.
みんなプレイをしてくれるっていうのも数字の上からもよく見えたので
As long as you're making it a good solid game, yeah. And we released 7 jobs at this time. Yep. The
8ナンバー忘れちゃったけど7つのジョブがいっぺん
I also don't remember which patch it was.
たった一人のゲームデザイナー
Single game designer that was handling it.
The
Oh,
team
poor
had
game
decided
designer.
on what needed to be changed and how they were going to do it. For the first time in years, they were feeling hopeful, and even better, players were finally starting to respond with positivity.
Okay, give me a moment. I live. Okay, let me see. Sorry, guys. That was some really quick health break. Let's continue.
But right as they were settling into this new reality and finding their rhythm, disaster struck.
Right. That's happened about
For
that
6
time.
minutes, Japan shook. A 9.0 earthquake
Yeah.
struck 200 miles northeast of Tokyo.
Yeah, the earthquakes and the tsunami of that era. That was like a big tsunami situation, an earthquake. Back in 2011, 2012?
Devastated coastal regions.
Yeah.
What followed was a humanitarian and infrastructural disaster that can be barely comprehended.
Yep.
While the country rallied to help those affected,
It was chaos on all sides. They basically completely restructured their like building stuff, started to restructure their building mechanics since then, because they needed to make sure that to establish towns and buildings that are capable of withstanding A, earthquakes, B, the overflowing of water, because this was just completely this was catastrophic.
Tokyo suffered aftershocks and frequent electrical blackouts.
Yeah.
I asked Yoshida-san if he'd like to share how this had affected the team.
Yeah.
まあ東京もそう
It was a couple hundred miles north of Tokyo. We did feel a quake as well. Yeah.
やっぱり
Some people decided that it was safest to stay at the office,
方が安全だって言って
so they would stay overnight and just continue to watch the news. Yep.
ずっとニュースを見て
I imagine it's not only safer, it's also like more I don't know. It's better to do so, to stay in the office, because there's all your colleagues, all the people you are relying on to for some sort of comfort, because not everyone has a family, right? Not everyone has a family. Not everyone is like just not everyone has kids or anything that they provide for salarymen. Most people who play who are Japanese salarymen, at least not most, but a considerable part of Japanese salarymen usually don't have kids until like later in life. Yeah. So it's just and game developers who basically lived in life in their offices. They didn't really have much time to establish family either. So a lot of them didn't have family. So it's just basically like friends from the office that they just stuck together and kind of huddled together and make sure they remain safe. Yeah,
やっぱり東北に
that's what I think at least.
家族とかね親戚とかいうスタッフ
Yeah.
がいたので
So no, at this point, it didn't feel appropriate to continue pushing forward development.
確かにそうですね。で、開発なんか優先すべきじゃないと思うので。
For being developer, they're human beings. Yes, exactly.
まあ日本中
All over Japan, electrical power was needed when we thought about
まあ本当に
how can I help. It might not have much large impact, but just our way to contribute. We decided to power down the servers for
まあ少しでも協力できる
a certain amount of time. We thought in community terms of the situation that it was able to help. Yeah, felt sorry for our players, but we decided to temporarily power down the servers.
そんな時期でしたね。ただ
So once we turned the power back onto our servers, I actually received a few letters
方からまあお手紙をいただいたり
from the players and letting me know that they were able to contact their friends
遠くにいる
through the realm of Riorzia. The friends actually logged in and they were able to
エオルゼアがあったから電話も通じない
confirm on their status when the telephones and whatnot were not available. Actually, yeah, that's true. That's true. I remember there was murmurs about this somewhere back then, online, I think. But it was basically that situation where there was a catastrophe, phone lines were down, internet was still functioning now. And the servers on the internet, when they either got on the social media platforms like Twitter and such, was Twitter even a thing back then? Well, social media platforms, right? Or Facebook, most likely. And they went there, right? And they basically only were able to establish contact through either social media platforms or with friends and family through games they play, online games they play, which is kind of unique because some people were legitimately finding out if their friend or family is alive through an MMORPG. Isn't that just a fascinating concept? I guess it makes sense that they kept the servers alive and didn't shut them down after all.
手段がなかったところエオルゼアの中にログインしてきてく
They
れ
were
る
able to log in the Orzia and they were able to check on their friends, yeah,
逆にその周りの人たちの情報っていうのも分かったっていう
and confirm that they were okay. So yes,
いくつかいただいて
if power is needed,
まあ電力が
we
足り
could
なければ
contribute to it by powering down the servers.
落とせばいいかなと思うんですけど
But at the same time, I also felt that keeping Orzia going was also beneficial.
その
Yep, it was.
維持していく
I were actually convinced that. Thank us for keeping Final Fantasy XIV
サポートなのかなって思った機会でもありましたねその時はだから
up and running and for continuing operations. Yeah.
ファイナルファンタジー14
Well, not only contacting others, but also the sense of stability. I think that is what's also important. The sense of like, oh, I can reliably go there and meet my friend there, and we can like play a little bit the game and like make sure that we are fine. But yeah, it basically was like that. People are stability in this completely unstable times, completely unstable time, not unstable, unstable times.
開発で
From the standpoint, the content of the battle that we're going to
実はイ
face
フリートの次に戦う
after Freed was actually going to be Leviathan, which was the sea serpent. Oh yeah, that wouldn't be appropriate with it. That wouldn't really be appropriate with it. I was wondering why. Back then, I was wondering who would be the next boss, and then the next boss came out, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, that doesn't seem right." that does seem right. But it was just like this. I remember watching this 5 years ago, and like, oh, I see. Yeah, that would be kind of insensitive to release, huh?
かなりの速度で作ってたんですけど
Sea Serpent that released. So that's the point we decided to. No, there's no way we can release that with that situation happening. So I had to quickly change course to implement
それが理由ですあ急いでもう
the Moogle battle, and so we had to fix that so we could release that content instead.
し直したので
Yeah, the Moogle battle.
いや
It was too difficult to get to
なかっ
work
たですよみんなやっぱりそれぞれの
because they didn't come to work, and Square Enix itself had to close for a few days.
まあ会社に来れない
And so there was a period of time when we didn't go to work, of course.
ただどっちかっていう
But
と
I did think we were all thinking about what we could do in order to
自分
help.
たちにできることをやろうっていうみんな感じだった
Yeah.
そうじゃあ全員で
But was there a point in all
僕らが活動
Okay, yeah, I just followed of people going, yeah, and consider about what we wanted to provide an environment where afterwards, when those people who were affected by the incident got a chance to settle down, they would have the comfortable environment in game. True. Ultimately, what can we do? Well, make video games. So I felt continuing to make games was what we could do best. I think that was the sort of the stance we were taking. We didn't necessarily talk about it verbally, but that was the kind of stance that we had been seeing at work. Yeah. It's a lovely mindset, honestly. Considering I didn't like read everything out loud. Basically, what Yoshida was saying here is that they were focusing on making the game and focusing on making it comfortable and good, and trying to keep the servers online because people all over Japan was experiencing this catastrophe, and then they was like trying to find their friends and family and everything through the game, and then they would. The Yoshida also said that they would want to people who settle down after this to have a game to return to that is comfortable and good, and to take their minds off things by enjoying this game effectively. So he was like, yeah, it felt good to make games, because making games is what we do best. So they made a game. They made a game.
For the coming months, the team would release patch after patch for 1.0.
Yeah.
1.17 introduced 8-player parties and more stable network infrastructure.
Oh, yes.
1.18 dropped in June 2011 and was a huge patch that made the game much more playable.
Yes.
Level caps lowered for story quests. It added grand companies, class adjustments,
Yeah.
instance dungeons, and auto attack. Yes,
Auto
This
attack.
game still didn't have auto.
It didn't. Yeah, finally, when you're running up to the enemy, you didn't need to immediately cast a thing. You needed to just click on an enemy, and then you poke an enemy, and then you'd only after that you cast the thing. Like,
It featured a more user-friendly map interface and also scrapped the controversial fatigue system.
yeah.
And so we need
No more. We were barred from playing the game longer than like few hours. No more.
to take this concept that Yoshida-san has created, make it fit with the current world,
Yeah.
write stories around it, make the transition seem seamless.
Yeah, maybe.
And then in the new world, make it so that there's still some connection with that old world that will be understood by those core players, but won't alienate new players. It won't be something like, oh, you didn't play that old, the stuff in 1.0, so you're going to be completely lost. Because we don't want to do that either. We want to get new players to come that didn't play the original one.
Effectively, the entire Realm Reborn, I think, was built around the fact that the wink, wink, nudge, nudge about the world, in a way, if I remember correctly, since I played it, I've seen this. Like, there's a lot of wink, wink, nudge, nudge situations in those in Realm Reborn that I think a lot of people missed, because you guys were not there. A lot of people were not there in 1.0. But it was not detrimental to the experience of Realm Reborn to understand those wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It was not really necessary to understand, and even then they expanded on stuff in raids and dungeons and everything, and these storylines to explain exactly what was missing later. It's just that I feel like there was a lot of gratification for people who were in 1.0. I think there is even specific dialogue in cutscenes, some specific cutscenes that only happen to 1.0 players. If you have an account from 1.0, there is only that specific dialogue only happens for you. It's nothing too major, right? It's nothing too major, but it's a cute little nod to your continued contribution. It's just a cute little nod to your existence as a person. Well, not to mention the fact that there's still 1.0 players' accounts still are permanently discounted. They are permanently discounted from in their subscription pay. I think they're lowered from $14 to $9, something like that. It's like a pretty sizable discount for Final Fantasy XIV players who play on legacy accounts effectively. Yeah, it's a pretty sizable discount. It's like it cuts out a solid percentage of the payment you have to make to every month to play the game. So it basically it's a little plus there's like some cosmetic rewards and stuff that you only have if you played in 1.0. Ultimately, it's not groundbreaking or game breaking, but it is something
We
sizable.
want to have them have to play the original to understand this one. And so trying to work the story that way was, it was challenging, but it was a lot of fun. We got to try a lot of things. We had a lot of freedom, then especially on the 1.x stuff, because in a sense, it would only be released, seen for a few months, and then it would be gone forever.
Yep. There was a lot of wacky shit back then. There was a lot of wacky shit. Like I genuinely believe a lot of the more unhinged storylines and plots happened in there because, well, nobody will see it more than a certain amount. No restrictions were given. No restrictions were given to the writers for these parts. It was a sight to behold. I've got to say to you, it was a sight to behold. Honestly, it was kind of like it was a unique experience all on its own, and seeing all that develop over time was also especially unique for me. Especially.
So, on one hand, that's really exciting.
I guess I have so much fond memories of 1.0 because I never actually played it. I just watched someone else play it, and I do not have that personal attachment to all the stuff that happened during that period of time. So I only experienced the good part and the growth and the interesting parts and the overarching good development of everything. I only watched. So yeah, it's hard for me to realize all the painful memories my friend has about some stuff specifically, right? It's just like I've seen them get frustrated. I've seen them get like angry and stuff. I never did, so because I never actually played the game. But yeah,
because we can do whatever we want. We can create these crazy stories, have these crazy characters, all of these crazy situations, and go, balls to the wall. But on the other hand, we're working day and night on something that only a few thousand people are going to see and will be gone in 6 months.
Yeah.
I really think, I look back at it now, I think we did a lot of our best work during that one point. And it's sad that no one is ever going to see that. Maybe, there's some videos up on YouTube where people can still go back and check them out. But a lot of, some of the best stories, some of the most crazy stuff went on during that 1.x period because it was pretty much no holds barred.
No holds barred.
We had crazy cults, and you had people from the Garlean Empire. There was propaganda, giant dragons and machines, and it was just anything goes.
Anything goes. Part of the I kind of missed that time when there was a lot of the mentality of everything goes, because there was a lot of weird stuff, obviously, because when everything goes, there's always going to be misses and missteps and nothing, and there will be stuff that is not really impressive in terms of writing, but there is also going to be a lot of really golden bits of dialogue, really golden bits of writing, really golden bits of storytelling, because they didn't really hold themselves back at all, and I kind of respect that. You can see a lot of echoes of what once was in the new game. Obviously, people who wrote that will obviously write no worse in the new game, right? They still wrote the same thing material, but a lot of it is relatively restrained, I'd say. At least in Realm Reborn. I don't know how it goes in Heaven's Word, and I don't know how it goes in further because I haven't played Heaven's Word on Forward, right? I haven't played that. I only now reached the end of Realm Reborn, and I haven't even played the post-patch stuff yet, so I don't really know. But I did hear it goes dark in some places though. But yeah, back then I think he told their best work because this was the time, if I remember correctly, this was the time before Shadowbringers. Yeah, it was before Shadowbringers. It was Heavensworth out, and it was the next, which is the next one, Storm something that was out as well. That was coming out soon, so that was. Which is currently considered one of the weaker later expansions, if I'm not mistaken. But the Shadowbringers came out since, and then the Endwalker also came out since. So I guess I imagine the writing quality kind of increased back to that level of no holds barred in a way. Oh yeah, I remember that. I remember that.
The very first time it was just some rumor.
Oh yeah.
Is it getting bigger?
Is it getting bigger?
This was also when Square Enix.
Me and a friend were sat behind the computer. We looked up at the sky. We were like, "Is it growing? what is this? Is it like a bug or something? What the fuck is this? And I'm like, every day we played the game every day. It was like, what is this? Is this a thing? What is this? What do we do with that? Like, what is this? What is happening there? Right? It was definitely kind of exciting in a way. It's just like, oh, what is this? Is this a thing? What is happening over there? Right? It's just like, what the fuck is this? Right? Don't really understand because the developers didn't really speak about it at all. Either they were basically just like vibing there over at their side and like probably giggling like mad geniuses about this. It was like all the rumors on the forums. There was like all the discussions about it. What the fuck? Why is the moon growing? Right? And then there was like other shit. I'm pretty sure he will mention it, but there was like other shit that started to happen to people. I think it was really eerie and really interesting what is happening.
Announced that an entirely new version of the game had
Yeah,
been in development
this
since
one.
January.
This one, yeah.
Current players would receive copies of it for free. They also announced that players' character data and progress would be transferred to this new version.
Yes.
They were then calling version 2.0.
Yes.
The roadmap for patches was outlined, and it was announced that monthly fees would be reinstated as of January 2012. As an incentive for players to keep playing while the fees were introduced, they announced Legacy Campaign, which rewarded players who paid for at least 3 months of service with permanently reduced monthly fees.
Yep, that's what happened. At least if you played at least 3 months, you were awarded complete reduction of price for the rest of the rest of the life cycle of the game.
Those players will also get an exclusive Chocobo mount, while as a thank you for their support during the redevelopment, their names will be featured in the credits of the new game.
Yeah.
で2011年
October 14th, yeah.
10月14日に
Realm Reborn is coming, yeah.
レームリボンっていう
Create a completely new Final Fantasy 14. So you have these people going,
どうなった
oh, are you going to continue to update this? What's going to happen? Yeah.
どうなの
Yeah.
楽しかったですよ
It was so much fun. We were panicking. It was like, what the fuck is this?
Saw all the service renamed, while the moon Dalamud now seemed larger in the sky.
Yeah, it was bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
Introducing a new job system and 2 new dungeons.
Yep.
1.22 followed in April. Dalamud grew closer.
Mm-hmm.
And now some players are beginning to have nightmares. Ominous dreams greet players who log into the game while at an inn. The community all the while trying to figure this out. Is the moon going to destroy the world? Then how will player data be saved in 2.0?
Yep.
They wouldn't have
That was actually what was happening. It was mad, like this stuff, because we were always logging off in an inn, right? We always basically went because it was a tradition, as I already mentioned before. It was a tradition to like unload stuff at inn and like go to sleep in like almost in a role playing kind of capacity, right? We always got these dreams, and it was like so many nightmares happening, and I was like, oh, what is happening?
have to wait long for answers. That summer, a trailer revealed that 2.0 would be titled A Realm
Reborn.
And Yoshida-san conducted numerous interviews explaining the future of the game and the features players can expect. On September 12, 2012, the final patch for 1.0 was released.
Yeah.
Game updates to 1.23b, and with it comes an enormous Dalamud.
Yeah.
Its mechanical outer shell now in full view. Players now realizing that this world didn't have long left. On November 1st, 2012, a final in-game battle began.
Yeah.
Square Enix made entry free for the final week of the game, while a haunting song can be heard playing on the wind across the entire realm. While the server struggled to deal with the load, players got together with their friends one last time, as the development team in Japan spammed enemies outside capital cities. One group of players outside of Golda has become legendary, attempting to protect the city with what we now call the Great Gobu Wall.
The Great Gobu Wall. Yeah, it was a magical time. Honestly, it was kind of like a weird time, like a melancholic time, but everyone was just so hyped. Everyone was just so hyped and excited and confused.
Elzer, we had to do some chaotic situation to the existing world. So what we decided to do is to spawn the strong enemies and near the main cities.
Yeah.
Even when
So many enemies.
the very strong, Manticore or the mobile or the giant monsters, players kill instantly. Yeah, instantly. Yeah,
Yeah, it was basically that. Appear there was so many. Play all the players were gathering. There were so many players there, old, new, so many players. They were all gathered there, and they would basically stand guard against the tide of monsters and completely obliterate every single thing that came into mind, that came into the site. They completely, utterly destroyed every single enemy inside. Like there were people who would immediately jump on and spam all the attacks on one monster, and it just basically went. Seconds.
Yeah, so, oh, Jesus. So, you killed my monster again, so what we can do is just keep spawning lots of monsters.
Yeah.
In very late night, when I was keep spawning the monsters.
Yeah. Immediately
one
destroyed.
I've never talked to him before, but just coming down to my desk and then just give me the bit of paper with some numbers. Which numbers I can understand. This is the number of the certain monster that I can type in, so that I can spawn a very new, stronger monsters. Thank you very much. It's the program. So that was a very fun moment.
You were like playing God.
At first, I felt like God. Hey, players, can you beat my monsters? But no. I was very weak God.
They were God.
Yeah, they were God.
So it was then, on Sunday, November 11th, 2012, just over a year after Final Fantasy XIV was originally
A little bit over a
launched,
year now.
with Dalamud hanging in the sky, that the servers were finally turned off. And as they did, a trailer dropped, showing players what was to become of their old home.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, man.
Well, I mean, it's
Got
pretty simple.
nostalgic there for a
You had
moment.
Something that not a lot of people liked, and everyone wanted to forget about it.
Yeah.
So rather than, just taking that and doing it over,
Yeah.
and just reimagining it,
Of course.
why not destroy that and start over?
Yeah. Why just not blow it
Too
up?
much of that original core there, then it will just linger on as
No.
that kind of cancer.
Yeah, just
that,
blow it up.
Will always bring us back to that failure.
Just
Why
blow the
not
fuck
just
up.
Clean the slate.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, and this is where things kind of got complicated, is that no matter how bad the reviews were and how many people bought the game but then left the game, there was still this core of
Yeah.
players in both Japan
And Europe and America.
that
Yeah.
were passionate about the game. In the state that it was, they were passionate
About the game,
They were
yeah.
passionate about the series and their characters that they had created and were now.
I
living
think if I'm gonna make a statement here, I think a lot of the core of the community formed by those people who were passionate about the game at its worst. They were so passionate about it, even though it wasn't it was objectively not a good game, right? It was objectively not a good game, but they were still very passionate about it, no matter what. And it's just something I think that formed the core of the game, where it became kind of like obviously needed to be friendly and accepting, and it kind of became ingrained in the culture of Final Fantasy XIV to be acceptive of the new players, because there was a time where the game was actively bleeding people, bleeding. It's the only reason the people stayed who stayed is because of the community that formed around the game. It was kind of like a little thing where it's just like, we know it's a bad game, right? We know it's a bad game. We know this has a lot of flaws, but they're fixing it, A, and B, I already made friends here, and we played this game, and I want to play with these friends in this game together, and this game is cool to me. And I'm having a lot of fun in this game. And the more the time progressed, the better the game became. And the more time progressed, the easier it was to keep the game in your radar and keep the game around. And there was actually even newbies again. There were new people around again. People who stuck around and also joined in those friendships. And the RP scene was also... RP scene existed even back then as well. It wasn't even like... It wasn't like it spawned out of nowhere, because when the game became reborn... it was already there. People were already role playing their characters because often more than not, that's all they really did in the game until a certain point of fixing. There was not a lot of things to do, so people just role played. People role played, interacted with each other, created their own adventures. Basically, it was a thing.
And so, you know, it would have been easy to just say, okay, bye guys.
Bye guys, yeah,
But
easy.
if you do that, then you've basically alienated the only group that stuck with you, you know, for all of those years, when everyone else is slamming the game and talking about how bad it is. I mean, those guys were troopers. They would go on the forums. They were defending, you know, the development team when a lot of times we didn't deserve defending.
Yeah.
So that idea to wipe the slate clean, but not make it something completely new, make it something that was connected in some way to that, to, you know, the old game. The decision made by Yoshida-san to, okay, let's, you know, bring down Valna, destroy the planet, destroy the realm, but then bring it back.
But yeah, I think the sacrifice of that one particular person, I think everyone who played the game at least heard of. I think the sacrifice basically, in a weird way, I think the sacrifice, it was real. It was basically, how do I say it? It was almost symbolical of how the development team worked so hard to preserve something, but then when they realized that it's impossible to preserve this thing, it must be let go to go on to greater pastures, right? But it's still ultimately was still the similar world, similar characters, similar everything. But it was a new one. It was a new updated one. It was the better one, where there's more chances for it to be saved instead of again wiped away. So yeah,
A way to make that happen within the current story.
yeah.
Make it feel natural. Make it feel like that was always the plan.
That was always the plan.
Was the biggest challenge, I think.
The team at Square Enix had worked themselves to the bone,
Yeah.
not only recreating Final Fantasy XIV in A Realm Reborn, but also by dedicating time and money to ensuring that 1.0 players felt part of that story.
Yeah.
The moon, Dalamud, had crashed into the world of Eorzea. That world was gone forever.
Gone
Only one
forever.
question remained. What was going to rise out of its ashes?
I think there was a pause in services. There was a pause in services for a while. I'm not exactly sure how much. Like how much time passed between the ending of service on the original game 1.0 and the new service in the 1. and 2.0. I'm not sure how much time passed. I think they will mention this later. There is one last part, the new world. We're gonna watch this in a second. I'm gonna drop by, go grab some tea, and then we're gonna watch the third part. I'm not gonna go on the be right back screen. Clap. It's a wonderful story. Like I think this is really good story. This is the last one, the last part of the Noclip documentary. We're gonna watch this in a second. I'm gonna be right back. Just right back. I'm not even gonna go to the be right back screen. I'm just gonna be right back.